All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're jumping into the command line to really master the essential Docker commands. You know, the ones you're actually going to use day in and day out. We're going to build a super simple, powerful, and repeatable workflow right from the ground up.
Look, if you've ever just stared at that blinking cursor wondering which Docker command is the right one, you are definitely not alone. We've all been there. So today, we're going to replace that confusion with a rock-solid foundation, covering the absolute must-knows, step by step. Let's do this. First things first. Before we even think about pulling images or running containers, we need to make sure our Docker setup is actually, well, alive and working. It's such a simple check, but trust me, it prevents so many headaches down the road. Think of these 3 commands as your initial health check. Docker-version. That's just a quick, yep, it's installed. Simple. Then Docker version gives you a little more detail, breaking down the client and server versions. This is super useful for debugging any weird compatibility issues. And then there's Docker info, which is like a complete diagnostic report on your entire Docker world.
Okay, so we've confirmed our setup is good to go. Now it's time to get our raw materials. And in the world of Docker, everything, and I mean absolutely everything, starts with something called an image. So let's really break down what that means.
So what exactly is an image? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a blueprint for a house. It's this static, unchangeable template that has all the instructions and all the materials packed inside. The code, the libraries, you name it. Everything you need to create a working application. So, how do you get one of these blueprints? You use Docker pull. This command just reaches out to Docker Hub, which is kind of like a massive public library for these images, and downloads one to your computer. The Hello World image is the perfect one to start with. It's tiny, it's simple, and it's literally designed just to prove that your setup is working perfectly.
So once you pulled an image, how do you see what you've got? Docker Images is your best friend here. It lists everything on your machine. Now, a little pro tip. The -Q flag is great for scripting because it just gives you the raw image IDs. And that dangling equals true filter? Oh, that's a fantastic cleanup tool. It helps you find old, forgotten image layers that are just sitting there eating up your disk space.
All right, we have our blueprints. Now it's time for the really exciting part, the construction phase. We're going to take those static images and spin them up into live running applications. And this is where containers enter the picture. And this right here perfectly illustrates the core idea of Docker. If the image is the blueprint, then the container is the actual house you built from it. It's the living, breathing, running instance of your app. And what's cool is you can have tons of different houses or containers all built from the very same blueprint, each totally separate from the others. Okay, pay attention, because this slide clears up something that trips up so many people. What's the difference between Docker Run and Docker Start? Docker Run takes a blueprint, an image, and builds a brand new container from scratch. But Docker Start, it finds a container you already built that's just been stopped, and it turns it back on. So Run creates, Start revives. It's a key difference. Now, to see all these buildings you've created, you use the command docker ps. But by default, it'll only show you what's currently running. If you want to see everything, both running and stop containers, you gotta add that -A flag for all. This is an essential command for just keeping tabs on your workspace. So, how do we shut a container down? Well, you've got 2 main options. Docker stop is the polite way. It sends a signal that basically says, hey, could you please wrap things up and shut down cleanly? But Docker kill, that's the emergency switch. It doesn't ask, it just pulls the plug immediately. You should always try to use stop first. So we've built our apps, we've run them, but what about the mess we left behind? The final and super important part of our workflow is cleaning up after ourselves. And this isn't just about being tidy, it's about keeping your whole system fast and efficient. So why does this even matter? Well, because every single stopped container and every old, unused image is just sitting there taking up precious disk space. And over time, that can add up to gigabytes of wasted storage, which can really slow your system down. A regular cleanup is just good developer hygiene. So here's the deal. There's a right way to do this. You can't just delete an image if a container, even a stopped one, is still using it. Think about it this way. You can't throw away the blueprint if a house built from it is still standing, right? So the process is always the same. First, you stop the containers. Second, you remove the containers. And only then can you finally get rid of the images. Okay, I need everyone to pay close attention here. This command is the big red button. It chains 2 things together. First, it gets the ID of every single image on your system, and then it forcefully deletes all of them. It is incredibly powerful, and let me be clear, there is no undo button. It's an amazing tool for a total system reset, but you have to be absolutely sure before you hit enter.
Of course, you don't always need to use the nuclear option. For a more surgical cleanup, you can use Docker RM and Docker RMI to remove specific containers and images one by one. And honestly, Docker System Prune is a fantastic, much safer command. It acts like a general cleanup crew, getting rid of all the junk while leaving your active work totally untouched.
And there you have it, a complete, essential workflow. From checking your setup, to building with images, managing containers, and finally, cleaning everything up. You have the blueprints, you have the tools, now the only question left is, what awesome thing are you going to build first?